Let's be honest, the 2020 iPhone SE seems to be one of the least exciting products that I can remember. And I'm trying to do my best here to separate the tech nerd inside of me and realize that this product is and was never intended to get someone like me excited, but I'm trying to figure out how anyone out there who's looking to get a new phone can even be remotely excited by this iPhone in 2022. And I think I figured out the whole difference here. Now, I want to start by saying that the iPhone SE is not a bad phone by any means. It's just not one that I think will garner a lot of interest by most of the people out there, or really a whole lot of attention because of how unremarkably similar it is to the previous iPhone SE. In fact, we already have facts to back that up, as it has already been reported that Apple has informed suppliers to cut back on production a bit of the iPhone SE for this quarter by as much as 2 to 3 million units because of, surprise, surprise, weaker than expected demand. I guess it's not all that shocking that people no longer want the same design as the iPhone 8 that was launched nearly 5 years ago, and not to mention it looks the exact same as the last iPhone SE that came out a couple of years ago, with very, very little incentives for those users who already own one of these to upgrade to one of these. That's probably not the audience that Apple's going for, but let's talk about what is new with this new model here. There is the new same stronger glass that's found on the iPhone 13, and early reports do indicate that it is stronger than the last model. If you're someone who drops their phone a lot, then maybe this is enough of an upgrade for you. The inside of the phone does feature 2 of the biggest updates, and really some of the only updates for this phone. The biggest being that A15 chip. This is the same chip and processor that's found inside of the iPhone 13, and that's always been the appeal of the SE. Smaller form factor, cheaper price, but fast and reliable performance, and a phone that's going to last you quite some time. It's obviously one of the fastest iPhones that you can get alongside an iPhone 13, 13 Pro, 13 Pro Max, and 13 mini. But how much more of a difference are people going to notice between this A15 and the iPhone SE 2022 model and the A13 that's found in the 2020 iPhone SE? Well, if you happen to have them here, you can run benchmarks and you'll see a score difference, but that really doesn't do anything for me. I'd like to know about a real-world performance difference, and honestly, there's not a day-to-day real-world difference in my opinion. I tried and tested each phone for the last week, using these phones as I would any other, and I really couldn't tell you a difference in performance. So what about the camera? There has to be a difference because the A15 now allows for better computational photography. I mean, yeah, maybe. The camera hardware itself between these two phones are exactly the same, and even though the A15 is supposed to improve software processing, there might be some benefits to low light scenarios because of the A15, and some images might appear sharper now due to deep fusion. Ultimately, the A15 should last you longer, like I said before, over the A13 or any other phone that's not an iPhone 13 basically. So if you want a phone that you can keep the longest, I'd say for probably the next 7 years for the most part, it would make sense to just get the phone with the latest chip, and that would be this iPhone SE 2022. So that leaves us with 5G and one of the next bigger improvements of the new iPhone SE. And yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a selling point for some people, but I think it's still pretty early in the 5G days. And again, I'm looking at this as people who are looking for long-term phones. So if that's your plan, if you want to keep it for the next 7 years, definitely future-proof yourself. Go with the model that supports 5G. If you're looking for a phone to last you for a year or two before you can maybe upgrade to something bigger and better, then I think the LTE network is still pretty solid, and you can save yourself more money by going with a different phone that might not have 5G at this time. Battery life is more or less the same, which it isn't great but because this phone is pretty tiny, but I'm not going to really hold it against it. What you start to think about, though, is the kind of lack of good battery and the old boring design, the support for a physical home button still, although I still like Touch ID, so I can see that as a plus. But there's still a lack of a full HD 1080p screen in 2022. It's really hard for me to get excited about this phone and want to recommend it to people, but I have to just kind of step back and think about it again in the sense of, like, if you're looking for something familiar and something, you know, bit better than what you've been using. Like my parents, they've been using the iPhone 6 and 7 for the last 6 to 7 years, and now their phone is way too sluggish and they're looking for something that is going to keep up performance-wise, but is, still familiar and something that they can easily navigate, and they don't need to relearn, new swipe gestures on an iPhone 11 or a 12, even though that's what I would go with if I was, say, subsidizing a phone and paying monthly for it, because there's only a few dollar difference between these phones. I would go for that. But that's, again, not for me. It's for those people who want the familiarity of this design language. They want to just pick up a phone, use it for when they need it, and not have to worry about learning new things. It's perfect for those people, and this phone will last them for the next 5 to 7 years at least, and it'll still get updates, and that's why this phone, in my opinion, still has a place, even though it's still not garnering a whole lot of attention as Apple would like. But I'd imagine that'll change as more people are looking to upgrade their phone, but stick with kind of what they already had. And of course, I would love to know in the comments down below if you think the iPhone SE is a good phone in 2022 or a flop, or if you would recommend it to some people that you think might like this. Go ahead and just let me know all of that in the comments down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.